Okay, let's see how this goes. Okay, hey guys. So just finishing setting everything up here, making sure that yeah, audio is okay. It would seem. Um, let's see. I'm still pretty new at this. Okay, cool. So I'm hoping someone is going to join me here. I yeah, test of audio is off. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm hoping that some of the people who were in the class are going to be joining me. I did forget to let anyone know that I was doing this, but maybe maybe someone is maybe they'll watch a recording later. So just as a review of what we are doing, we decided to build a Space Invaders game. And we've gotten pretty far. I recorded some of these. I recorded some of the earlier kind of steps in this. This project is not the project that I was working on earlier because I started a new one in the class. So I wanted to keep going with the one that I had in class. But the plan is to eventually do something where I let's see, trying something. Yeah, eventually do something where I. Yeah, I'm still testing. Yeah, where I do a proper tutorial here. So let's take a look at the status of this right now. When I press play here, you can see that we have some of the elements of a Space Invader game. We have some moving enemies there. They're going left and right. We have a player, and the player can actually jump over to the and I have the first person in chat, Micro David. Hi, nice to see you. So super excited every time that someone hops in. I always get really excited, so that's fun. Setting this up so that so we even have Mr. Teacher joining us as well. So I was just saying that I did forget to let you know that I was doing this. So I'm not sure that anyone is going to know about this, but we'll just see how this goes. And I always have to say that I'm practicing speaking and doing at the same time. I'm not very good at doing more than one thing at the time. So basically here is the stuff that we are testing, and I was actually thinking if I get a couple of people joining, I have something interesting. If I need to take a little bit of a break, then if I need to take a little bit of a break, then I have something pretty interesting. I've been doing kind of presentations all day for my own company. So if you guys want to see some of the concept art and some of the stuff that I'm working on day to day, I'd be happy to share a little bit of that. But first, so here you can see a little bit of the characters and teasing a little bit some of the concept art. So let's just jump into taking a look at the. Okay, yep. This is all working really cool. Okay, so let's just jump in, taking a look at some of the problems that we are going to be facing. I did say that one of the first things that I wanted to tackle was preventing or sorting out the enemy self-harm problem. So what's happening is that the enemies are actually damaging each other. And the problem was, if we take a look at some of the way that we set this up, was that we were trying to reuse. I was trying to show kind of the merits of using inheritance. So we have this base projectile that the player is using, and if we take a look into the projectile, we can see that if the projectile hits an enemy, it's going to destroy the actor that it hits. And then what we did, we went into the enemies folder here, and we created an enemies projectile, and we didn't override any of the logic here, but we did change some of the materials and some of the colors. So I was trying to figure out a way to. So I'm basically setting this up in a way that it is the most easiest to understand, because it's good just to get this working and just trying to highlight some of the concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the enemy profile, enemy projectile. Just let's take a look really quickly again at the projectile logic. So here you can see that when overlap begins, we check did we hit an enemy, and we call take damage from projectile on the enemy, and then we destroy the projectile itself. Here we can see that the enemy projectile, if I get rid of these two here, even though this is grayed out, you can see that this is actually what's happening. On the base projectile, we're overriding the on begin play, and the this node here, the parent node, this is actually what's causing us to kind of call so it's basically we are in the projectile right here, kind of the child blueprint or the child projectile, and what's happening is that we're calling the logic on the parent, and in this case this is probably not what we want to do. So let's just get rid of this and let's just add a print statement here instead. So what's going to happen now is that the parent blueprint, which is the base, our base class, the base projectile, if that overlaps anything, it's going to see if it's the enemy take damage from the actor. But if this is the enemy projectile, which is coming from the enemy, it should just print something. So now we press play, and you can see that here in the top left corner, we can see that there is now we're just getting a print statement. So the overlap is actually happening, but now you can see that it's actually not exploding at all. So what we want to do then is that we do want the enemy projectile to do some damage. So the goal here is then we go ahead and we just basically do a very similar logic here. On the base projectile we ask are we overlapping anything, and on the base projectile we say overlap the enemy. But on the enemy projectile we do cast to player pawn. So we only want, when the enemy projectile hits something, we only care if this is the player pawn. And then now we're just going to print a message saying hello player pawn, like this. And nothing is being printed, but the moment that it hits me, you can see that it's saying hello player pawn there. So now we can pretty easily, like the most simple thing we can do is that we can just destroy the actor here. So actor gets destroyed. So anytime something hits me, it's going to destroy me. So now I've effectively lost the game because I don't have I don't have any player anymore. But this isn't really fun. So let's go into the player pawn itself here, and let's add maybe a little bit of health, and that's we're doing it in the same way as we did with the other one. So I'm going to add a health variable to the player. I'm going to say it's an integer. I'm going to give it a default value of 5, for example, and then I'm going to add another custom event here, and I'm going to call the custom event inflict damage to player. We get our current health, and then one thing that we're going to add to this is because we have different enemy types, we want the different enemy types to do different amount of damage. So inflict damage to player, let's add an input property to it, and we'll do an integer. The integer is going to be damage amount. So without hooking anything up here, we go into the enemy projectile. So instead of calling destroy actor, because we did the cast, we now have access to all of the functions that the basic player or the player pawn has, and that includes this new one, inflict damage. So when the enemy projectile overlaps the player, we do inflict damage to player, and then what we can do now is we can just say that the enemies are doing, let's just start by doing damage 2. And and we'll just print this out. It's print string. Here we go, and here we go. Now, whenever something hits us, it should print the amount of damage done. So 2, something like that. All right. So let's just have this. We should probably finish this off here. If we go and we take a look at our base enemy blueprint here, we have a base enemy here. So here we can take a look at the logic that is actually spawning the damage here. So we did this earlier where we set a timer, we set a rate of fire and a little bit of variance to make this a little bit more interesting. So here every second or so, or every rate of fire, we're doing spawn actor to the enemy projectile. So we want the enemy itself to be who controls how much. We want the enemy itself to kind of control how much damage it's going to do. So we'll just add a new property called or new variable called damage amount of damage to inflict. It's going to be an integer. So now what we need to do is we need to somehow get the information from our enemy. So let's just say that the default value here is 1. So whenever we create a new projectile, we need to forward the amount of damage that the enemy is doing. We need to forward that into the actual projectile. And the way that we do that, if we go into the enemy projectile blueprint again, we can do and we can actually do this on the base class. So if we say that all our projectiles are supposed to have varying damage, we can say we can add a new variable here and call it damage to be inflicted. And I'm writing pretty verbose names just to make sure that I'm not just so people know that I can pretty much pick whatever. So it's an integer. We make a default value as 1. But the magic here, or the trick here is, once you pick this variable here on the blueprint, what we were looking at earlier when we were changing settings in the actual editor on the instances, what we're seeing here, what we want to do here is we want it to be available that whenever, if you go into the base enemy, for example, that whenever an enemy creates a projectile, the enemy should forward the amount of damage it should do to the projectile that it created. So here you can see the logic. We just did spawn actor of spawn actor class from class. So this is the default just spawn actor from class, and then you pick the actor that you want to spawn in this drop down here. And what you can see is that if you pick different types of actors to spawn, like I don't actually have any cool ones, but because this is a pretty fresh project, but you can see that at least when I have none, all I have is a spawn transform, and all I have is a spawn. They're actually the same. So I was hoping to show a difference here, but I guess without delaying this more, I'm going to show you how we do it. So the goal was we want to, whenever we create a projectile, we want to push the damage that we get from the enemy into the projectile, so the projectile can carry that amount of damage over and apply it to the player. So on the base projectile here, we added a property called damage to be inflicted, and we turn on the flag expose on spawn. And then it's going to give us a warning. It's marked as expose on spawn, but it's not marked as instance variable. So it also needs to have the eye turned on as well. So it needs to be modifiable on each instance. But the key thing here is expose on spawn, because this means that now, if we take a look at our enemy projectile where we spawn it, we need to right click on it and do refresh node, because it was created with the old properties So now you can see that I have a property here that whenever I create the enemy projectile, or any projectile, because we did this on the base class, we can feed into it the amount of damage to be inflicted. So we already created damage to be inflicted to the enemy. So let's just feed that in here. So this means that if we go back into our player pawn, for example, and right now we are printing a message, and let's just make it a little bit better. The append node here is a pretty good one to create a string, which means that if you want to make a message, you can make a text message. So I'm going to say damage to be inflicted, semicolon, and then I'm going to plug the incoming damage amount into it. Here we go. And so let's see what happens now if I press play. So I need them to hit me. So here we go. And damage to be inflicted, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Now, because we've made this property, the amount to damage to inflict, we made it on the base class. We can go into all of our enemies, and we can say that the red enemy, for example, which I kind of feel like should be the kind of the harder one. We can go here into the amount of damage inflicted property here, and we can modify it. So this is going to modify the damage to inflicted by only the red enemy, and we can say that we want the red enemy to give you 2. We want the regular enemy, which is the, let's see, where's the base enemy? Base enemy, that's this one here. Yeah, so the default number is 1. So the default number goes into the enemy projectile here. Take a look at the enemy projectile. Damage to be inflicted is going to be sat. Right, and then here's what we forgot to do. The damage to be inflicted then needs to be forwarded because when the projectile hits something, we cast it to the player pawn, and then we forward the damage to inflicted to the player. So now we should see that if we get hit by the red one, see, the red one is a weird, making me take 2 damage, but then the other ones should be giving me 1 damage, but why are they giving me 2? Let's see. Base enemy here, the base enemy has damage of 1, so that goes in here. We actually have a little bit too many enemies moving around, so let's go ahead and see if we can't simplify this a little bit. So now we have just 2 enemies. We have a red and a blue one. Okay, so the red one did 2 and the small one does 1. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and move these around a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, so I was getting some weird weird results. Okay, so the small one gives me 1 and the big one is going to be giving me 2. So now we've actually created some really nice way of kind of authoring our enemies. We can always go ahead now, and this is adding on top of some of the stuff that we actually looked at in the class. We made a base enemy here. That's a blueprint. We built in all of the properties that we wanted the base enemy. We wanted all enemies to kind of have. We have the health. We have a rate of fire, the start variance, projectile size, for example. Score to give to the player, and the amount of damage to inflict. So if we ever wanted to make a new enemy, all we have to do is right click on the enemy, create child blueprint class, and call BP my new enemy. And now I can go in here, I can change all of this. So if I want the health to be 20, if I want the rate of fire to be higher, start variance, and damage to inflict to be like 5. It's going to be a pretty big one. And then we go in here, we can change the mesh to something else, to the disk, for example. It's probably too small. The editor help icon here, for example, like so. So now, just in a matter of minutes, we've actually made a new enemy. And then if we go in here, into our yeah, so this is the code that we weren't really happy with, but let's go in here and we say that one of them is the new enemy. Moving around, so you can see that the new enemy is doing 5 damage, and the old one there is doing shooting once every 5 seconds. Oh, and I missed it. Let's see, come on. Yeah, it's doing 1. All right, so I think we've sorted out the enemy self-harm, and just to review again, the way that we did it was we went into the enemy projectile, and we just made sure that the enemy projectile casts to the player pawn. And then we did a couple of more things where we created a property on the actual enemy, on the base enemy here. We created amount of damage to inflict to the player, and whenever we created a new projectile, the projectile would actually take in the damage to be inflicted, and then the damage to inflicted is available in the projectile. So let's go and take a look at the enemy projectile, and then we use the damage to be inflicted when the projectile hits the player, and we tell the player inflict damage to player. And right now we are just printing a message. So one of the easier things we can do here is we can just add a text renderer, and I'm putting it in here, and let's see if we can fit it here. So it should probably be like this then. Make it a little bit bigger. 48. Here we go. Okay, and let's just see how this looks. Yeah, so we have a little bit of a text here next to our player. So we go into the player itself, and we can say that this text here, this text renderer, anytime that when we do begin play, which I think we are not using yet. Yep, so begin play. Whenever the game starts, we want to take the text renderer and we want to say set text. Here we go. So in the beginning we want to do set text, and we are going to plug our health into the text. So when the game starts, it should show us the amount of health that we have. So you can see right now we have 5, and feels like this could be a little bit bigger. Here we go, and here, and let's just say something like this. See how this looks. Yep. A little bit crude, but okay. So anytime that the player then gets hit, so we go into the player pawn again. On begin play, we update this message with the health, and then we just take the same amount of code, same code, and we plug it here into inflict damage to player. So instead of printing this out, we take the health, we subtract the health from the damage amount from the health, and we update the health. And this is very similar logic as we did before. And then we ask, is the health greater or equal than 0? And if it is, we set the number. But if it's not, we are going to lose the game. And for now, we'll just call destroy actor. We're just going to remove it from the world, like so. Okay. Here we go. And now you can see that my health is 5. This question mark is doing 5 damage. So we didn't. Why didn't we die? That is a good question. So if health is yeah, so this is an opportunity to do a little bit of debugging. So let's see what happens if I get hit. So this is slow. Here we go. I'm having a hard time getting hit. Okay, so here we go. So we take a look at the damage amount, which is 5, and we plug 5 into our yeah, okay, so our current health is 0. So we take 5 and we subtract 5 from 0, which returns 0. So we subtract 5 minus, minus 0, okay. So one thing is that we flip this. We were supposed to take our health and subtract the damage amount. That's one of the things. So let's try this again. Here we go. So I can see the damage that I'm getting is 5. Health is still 0, which we need to fix. And then, yeah, so that makes sense. So this gives us a 0. 0 minus 5. Wait. Yeah, 0 minus 5. Well, 0 minus 5 should actually give us a negative number. Can't we have negative number with integers? So so now all of the programmers are going to be laughing, because so it is, if it is bigger than or equal, yeah, okay, so this would be different. So this should be we should be doing if it's less than or equal than 0. If it is less than or equal to 0, then we destroy it. And this is the fun thing about doing this live, because everyone gets to see when I make silly mistakes. So if we are less than or equal than 0, so we do health, and our health is right. Oh, this is cool. Right. I see what I'm doing wrong. This makes sense. So I'm not as silly as I thought. So what's happening, if we just go over the logic one more time. So we get the damage amount, which is a number, and we want to subtract the damage amount from the health. So it's going to be the health, and then we do minus, and then we do the damage amount, and then the output is going to be saved into health. And then we check, is the health less than or equal to 0, and if it is, we destroy the actor, but if it's not, we upgrade our we update our text. So here's the bug, or not the bug. This is actually really interesting. So here we go. So I was getting confused that here we are, we're getting the damage amount is 5, and then our health is 0. And if I take a look at the default value here, the default value of health is actually 5. So what's happening is, because the breakpoint is happening here, we've already set the health to the result of 5 minus 5. So so it makes sense that this variable here has already been transformed into 0. So this is the so this was the problem, which was making me confused. So what you can see here is, if we just add a couple of more breakpoints, see if we can get hit. Here we go. So we just start here. Nothing has happened yet. We jump one step, so it hasn't executed. It hasn't executed the set kind of command yet. So we do 5 minus 5. And then we say we want health to be the result of that. And then if we stop over here, then we can see that health has become 0. And now, because it's less than or equal to 0, we stop. I make a lot of mistakes like this, and yeah. So here we go. So now, because these are doing so much damage, we get killed right away. So let's give ourselves let's say just like 50, for example. Here we go, and now our health is 50, and now it's 45, 25, 15. So so there is this there is a problem here where the projectile is not getting destroyed, which is happening here. So we just have to destroy the projectile after it's inflicted the damage to the player. So now it should only do it once. So the projectile gets destroyed, and just for good measure, we can also go in and on the projectile itself, We can also do spawn particle at location. We do get actor location. So this is gonna show us the it's gonna do a small explosion here on the when it is destroyed. Let's see. Awesome. So we should get a little bit of an explosion every time that they hit us. Yeah, here we go. Fun stuff. And then in the same time we can do stuff like show off. We can do things like play audio and things like that. So now I've lost, and I think what I want to do next is we've actually already done the player death. So I'm thinking we do start and stop game as well. Start and stop and end game. Okay. I want to. So now what I want to do here is I'm going to make it so that the game doesn't start until we press start, and then we put you on a screen where at the end of it. So I'm not even 100% sure how I'm going to do it. So let's just confidently go and do it. So let's start out by making a folder. That's a good way to start all sorts of things. So these are going to be screens. I'm going to do one screen that I want to call I'm going to do a user widget. I'm going to call it UI underscore, or I'm going to do screen underscore start screen. And let's just make this really quickly. Make a canvas panel to begin with. Here we go. I like to use the blur, the background blur here. I'm going to make the background blur fill and size to content, and on top of that I'm going to make a button, and this button is going to have text in it, and this text is going to say start game, and we're going to make it be in the middle. We center the alignment and we make it size to content, and we go into the background blur and we give it a little bit of value, and we see that it's in the wrong order, so it should be here. And this is a little bit of an aggressive blur, let's say 8. So we go here, we can say that we want a little bit more padding around it, 16 maybe. So let's just start with this. So when we press play, the first thing that we want to do is we want to show the screen. So we already have a UI here. So a couple of problems. We already have a UI, and we already have our enemies starting to like shoot right away, and we don't want that before the game starts. So let's figure out where we decided to make the UI first. And if I remember correctly, we did it in the level blueprint. Okay, so let's move this over to the game mode, because what I want to do now is I want to make what's sometimes called a game state. So the game is going to be in 3 states. It's going to be in start, end, and playing, I guess. So we already made a game mode. That should be here somewhere. And I am going to start by just doing the start mode. So in the game mode, I'm going to add a new custom event, and I'm going to do set game. Probably not a good idea to call it set game state. Okay, set game phase. And the reason why I don't want to use game state is because that's actually an Unreal thing. But basically, what I want to happen is I want to be able to call this function when something happens, and then the game mode basically does all sorts of cleanup for me and things like that. So so I need to be able to switch by the different game states. So one of the things that I can do is I can make a string here, and I'm gonna say new state, and then I can do switch on string, which means that I can create these let's see, start phase, playing phase, and the last one is end phase. So what I've done now is I've created an input. So if you call it with something, if you call it with the word start phase, playing phase, or end phase, it's going to execute one of these execution paths. So let's see. Yeah. So in the start phase, what we want to do is we want to do. Let's see. We want to do. Didn't we have something? Yep. Here we go. We want to do create widget, and we want to add it to the screen. So this widget here is our game screen, and we only want this to happen when we go to the playing phase. So we're going to store this in a variable called active screen, just so that we know what screen is active right now. And basically, what I'm going to do is something like this. And then we copy this here. So in the start phase, we want this to be, we want to do the start screen, and we save it. So this is supposed to be a UMG. This is going to be a user widget. So I'm thinking about doing this a little bit faster now. So just to get this working. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm creating the screen here, the start screen, when someone calls set game phase. And then the next time that I call it, I'm going to take my active screen and I'm going to do remove from parent, which means that it removes it from the actual kind of world. And yeah, it removes it from the world. So all of them are supposed to do that. So anytime that we switch a phase, we want to remove the screen that's already there, and we want to build a new one. We want to set up a new one, and we don't have an end phase one yet. So so let's just see if we can make this work. So now when we press play, we're not going to get any UI because nothing is telling us that that we're doing the start phase. So it's fine to do that in the game mode, because on begin play, when the game starts, we want to do set game phase, and we want to set it to the start phase. So when the game starts, so the game mode is the object that kind of sets the rules, and the first thing that we want to happen is we want to set the start phase. Okay, so then we get this this kind of blurred background, but the game is playing, and we'll deal with that a little bit later. So now if I press the start game button, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And I also, yeah, there is a little bit of a bug in the code here. There's going to be a warning, but we'll fix that later. So when we press the button here on the start screen, we want to the button is actually what is supposed to trigger the next screen. So we go into the button here, we find the unclicked event here in the lower left. We do get game mode. We want to cast the game mode, cast to BP game mode, because this is the game mode, and we want to do set state, set phase. Here we go. And when we press this button, we want to set the game phase into playing phase. Here we go. And now we go back to go here, start screen, and we do it like this. And I keep doing these disclaimers. This is absolutely not the best practices, but this is a good way to learn this. So now when I press start game, it removes my it removes my window, and actually we go into the next phase. So the last one that I want to do is I'm going to do one more screen, and I'm going to call that screen the end screen. So let's just go ahead and make a new widget blueprint and call the user widget screen end screen, and we add a canvas panel, we add a blur, and it's not a bad idea to just go into let's just add a blur. I was going to see if I can get the settings the same so it looks consistent, but it doesn't really matter. I think we had 8. The blur was supposed to be 8, and then we'll just have text here, and the text goes above. No, the text goes below. Here we go. We center the text, and here we can say winner is you, which is a famous kind of translation error in an old game. It's a really funny. Winner is you. But in this case, what we're gonna do is loser is you, because now that we go into now we want to hook this up to the actual death of the player. So we go into the player, we see inflicted damage, we destroy the actor here, but before we destroy the actor, we want to go in, we want to get game mode. We are going to cast this to BP game mode, and we're going to do set phase, game phase, and in this case, the game phase is going to be let's see. So there's another way to do these kind of these messages here that's done with something called an enum, and then you don't have to remember this remember the strings, but for simplicity I'm going to do end phase, and I'm going to call this lose phase, because we are going to, this is only going to happen when we lose. So the enemy, our player is here, we're going to set it to the lose phase. So our lose screen here, loser is you. Let's add another button here. This is not where you add the button. We go button here, and let's just put it at the bottom and in the center and up, and then we move it 64 minus 64 here, and we put text into it like so. Let's see if we can do this. We do restart level. Okay, so now we have a button that's called restart level. We press the plus here, and again we do get game instance. This is not correct. We do get game mode. The game mode itself is yeah. I got kind of distracted that there were more people watching. Cast to BP game mode, and we do set phase, game phase. And when you press restart, we want to set the game phase back into the start phase. And we do it like this. So if everything works, now we have game phases, and we're not dealing with the enemies just yet. So now I'm gonna kill this enemy here, but I'm going to lose, or try to lose. Here we go. Shouldn't have given myself so much health. Yep, I am terrible at this. All right, so I did die here, but what happened was that we did go over to the phase, but we forgot to hook it up in the game mode. So so now here's an interesting thing. Now we're starting to see a pattern that we're always doing the same thing. So we're removing the widget from the active screen. We're creating a new widget. We're setting it as a variable, and then we're adding it to the viewport. So now this is a pretty good time to actually just kind of generalize this and create a new function that's called. I'm gonna do custom event, and I'm gonna call this add screen to viewport. So I'm going to plug that in, and the only thing that's actually changing here is the class that we're referencing. So I'm then going to plug that in here. So now I can do add screen to viewport, and we do the on the playing phase, we want to do the game screen on the, and then we can just take all of this logic here out, and we can just copy this here, and on the start phase we can do the start screen, and then here we can do the end screen, the screen end screen here. Right, so because all of the logic is the same, now we just have a pretty nice utility function to do this. So let's try this again and see if this works. So we go ahead and press start. I take damage, a bunch of damage. There we go. Okay, here we go. So so loser is you, and now that I restart the level, I get start, and but the problem is that now I don't have a player anymore, which is unfortunate. Because now what we want to do is we may want to kind of reset the state of the game, because the pawn gets destroyed. So starting a new, calling the start phase here. Let's not do this yet. So what I'm thinking about here is that I would love to reload my level. Yeah, like, why don't we just do that? So instead of adding, we add the end screen here. We can go ahead and we can create a new function here called custom event, and we're going to do reload level. And this is going to like just put us at the start of the level again. We just do open level, and our level is called map_main. So instead of when we create this create the end screen, instead of going and saying go back to the start phase, we should reload the level. So that's just going to reset everything and make it pretty nice. So start the game. This is a weird way of playing this, trying to get hit by as many projectiles as you can. So here we go. We do restart level and start game, so it actually does restart the level. Trying to get a little bit of score. Okay. So in a very, very similar way, and now actually we can fix the bug that I was talking about earlier. So what's happening whenever I play is that we get access none trying to read property active screen, and this happens in the beginning because there's nothing inside of active screen, which means that it can't be removed. So we can just add deal with that case by saying if is valid. If this is valid, then we remove it. But if it's not valid, we just skip over it and go and continue and like doing things like this. All right. Let's see. So now we're not getting any errors. So now we have a pretty simple loop. The other thing that what we can do now is actually we can start adding some more logic into the actual phases. So one thing we can do is because the map has been spawned, we have these enemies here. So let's just make a couple of more of them to make the level a little bit more interesting. Here we go. Right. Yeah. So we need to actually we just duplicate them like so. And we go in and we move the actual arrows a little bit to randomize. We were going to, I'm probably gonna, I guess probably not gonna completely finish this time, but the next time that I do this, I'll focus a little bit more on the enemies. But I really wanted to finish the kind of the loop of the game. So if we go in here, you can see that they're much more kind of distributed here. Actually going outside a little bit, so let's just move them in a bit. So there's definitely ways to make logic to ensure that they don't go out of frame and things like that. But and it would be fun to do. But we're making such a simple game that we can basically just get away with. Just level authoring this. So one thing that we could think about doing is like, okay, so maybe I can. Like if we don't have to solve this, like we just don't solve it then. Just level design around it. All right. So we have added the start and end game. So let's add enemies don't start until game is ready. Yep, and this is not done yet. Here we go. Okay, so what we could so this is an opportunity to take a look at something new. We go into our player our enemy row, and the enemy row is the actual logic that's spawning the arrows and all of that. So what we want to do is we want the rows to be there, but we don't want the logic or the enemies moving until we go into the correct phase. So the way that we do that, we've been doing on begin play. So when the game starts, we do that. But another cool thing we can do is something called event dispatchers. So we can make an event here on the game mode saying on playing phase started. So what this does is that this is an event that anything in the world that has access to the game mode, and in this case anything, has access to. So what happens now is once someone sets the playing phase, we broadcast a message, and the message is saying on playing phase started. So in our enemy here, the base enemy, let's see, where is it? So instead of starting this right away, when the game starts, we say get game mode. We cast our game mode to BP game mode, and this we could make a utility function because we're doing this all the time. So now we can do bind to on phase started. So this means that this enemy is going to be, I'm going to make a custom event here, and I'm going to call it playing react to playing phase started. So what this is going to do is this is going to not basically when the game begins, we just take a look at we cast to the game mode. We're saying, okay, so what's the game mode, and then we say, okay, so we're interested, we as the enemy row here, we're interested in waiting for the enemy waiting for the phase playing start to begin, and once that happens, we're going to do something. So let's take a look at what happens. So right now when the game starts, there's nothing there, we have a player, but once we press start game, all of these are actually spawned, and this is actually much more difficult, interestingly enough. I don't even know if this is beatable. Can the question marks be killed? And if okay, so what you can see is so we're actually much closer now to a proper kind of game loop here. So the only thing left is making the victory condition itself, and let's see how long have we been doing this. I can't. Yeah, a little bit less than an hour. Okay, so what we've done tonight is we have actually basically we fixed the enemy self-harm problems. We didn't go into the enemy paths just yet because I wanted to focus more on the actual state switching of the game. We took a look at how to create these different phases and how to use the game mode itself to kind of broadcast a message. Broadcast a message from when we switched these stages, and we added UI and we did a bunch of things. So I think I'm going to leave it at that tonight, and the next time we're probably going to focus a little bit more on the enemies themselves, and I'm pretty sure that we can wrap this up then. So for everyone who was watching, this was really fun. I think I'm going to leave sharing some of the concept art we had next time but yeah.